Alright, so your second video of this week is volume of prisms. Remember that first one was volume of rectangular prisms. I did those because they're a little easier. This volume of prisms covers all other prisms. So we're going to talk about triangular prisms, trapezoidal, hexagonal, pentagonal, all that good stuff. So first though, before we jump into it, we've already done an area review. I'm going to give you all those area formulas again here, just in case you have to use them, in case you missed the other videos. So the first one we're going to talk about is triangles. Remember, your triangle's area is A equals, and you have 1/2 of the base times the height. So that base length times the height length. Or you can do area is equal to base times height divided by 2. They both work the same, it's just a preference. So your squares, your area is equal to the base times the height, or you can do area is equal to length times width. Remember, since it is a square, there technically is a third one. You can also do area is equal to the side length squared, since both sides or all 4 sides are the same. So it'd be just squaring the same number. Your rectangles are just like the square, so area is equal to base times height, or area is equal to length times width. Parallelograms, your area is equal to base times height. Trapezoids, you have 2 again. It's another preference. So your area is equal to 1/2 of, we take the bases, so base 1 plus base 2, and then we multiply that by the height. If you don't like the 1/2 in front, you can do area is equal to base 1 plus base 2. We can divide that by 2 and then multiply by the height. So again, it's your choice which one you prefer. Your area of circles is where we introduce the radius. So remember, area is equal to pi r squared. So we multiply pi times the radius squared. Now, in the last area, we did do sector of circles. We're not going to cover that here because we don't really deal with it much with our prisms volumes. So then, again, for regular polygons, you have the formula area is equal to 1/2. You have this little a, which means apothem, times p perimeter. And then again, the other version, area is equal to apothem times perimeter divided by 2. So here are all of your area formulas in case you don't have them. I would suggest copying them down so you do. You can always come back to this video if you don't copy them, but it's easier if you just have to flip a page to find them. So here, example 1 is a rectangular prism. We've already done that. So I'm going to go ahead and color this base so we know what we're looking at first. Remember, I took it and I drew it out to the side. At the top we had 9 and to the right we had 7. Now this 7 I am going to call my length, and this 9 I'm going to call my width. So if you remember, our formula for volume is this capital B, which means area of the base times the height. And for rectangular prisms, my area of the base is length times width, and I still have that times height in the formula. So for rectangular prisms, my formula is length times width times height. I almost have all the information I need. I have my length and my width. The last thing I'm missing is the height. So remember to find that. We look between our 2 bases at that line connecting them, and it tells me that my height here is 5. So when I replace my variables with numbers, my length is 7 times my width is 9 times my height is 5. So I'm going to do the first 2 numbers again. 7 times 9, that gives me 63. Don't forget, you still have to drop down this times 5. We haven't done anything with it. So your last step is to do 63 times 5. That should give you 315 kilometers cubed for your volume. Remember, this is from the video we just did. This is from the first video of this week. So example 2, again, you should see it is a rectangular prism. We see those right angles. So I'm going to write out my formula. Volume is equal to length times width times height. Now when I look at it, I come over here and I color this base. And when I do that, it actually gives me a square as the base. I have 11 by 11. When I label that up at the top, I'm going to put width. To the left, I'm going to put length. And I need to see this line right here connects my 2 bases. So that tells me my height is 7. The next step, we fill everything in for our variables. So my length is 11 times my width, which is also 11. And finally, times my height, which I look at the picture, it gives me 7. We can start simplifying. So 11 times 11, that gives us 121. And remember, we dropped down that times 7 because we haven't done it yet. When I do 121 times 7, that gives me 847. This is meters cubed, and that is what my volume is. All right, example 3, this is our final rectangular prism one. I just wanted to make sure you were good with what we did in the first video. If you are, of course, you can skip ahead. If you're not, please watch this last one and attend tutorials if you still don't get it. So again, I'm going to color my base. When I do that and I drop down, I again end up with a square that is 12 by 12. So the top 12 I'm going to label as my width, and the one on the right I'm going to label as my length. So back into our formula, volume equals length times width times height. Remember, this is only for rectangular prisms. We're going to get into other prisms in just a second. So when I fill in my information, I need my height still. The side connecting my two bases is 7, so I know my height is 7. So I fill everything in. For my length, I have 12 times my width, which is also 12, times my height, which is 7. You can plug it all into your calculator if you want, or you can do it step by step. 12 times 12 gives me 144. And then again, I drop down that times 7 since we haven't done anything with it. When I plug into a calculator, or if you want to do it by hand or in your head, 144 times 7 gives me 1008. And again, looking at my measurement, it's kilometers cubed. And this is your volume. Alright, so we are now getting into our other prisms. So everything besides the cubes, rectangular prisms, square prisms. What you have to do first is you have to look at your picture. I need to figure out what this is, what the base is. So looking at this, I see that there are two triangles. The odd shapes out are usually your bases. So I know that this is a triangular prism. Remember, our formula for our volume of prisms, volume is equal to this capital B, which stands for area of the base, times the height. So we're actually going to break this into two steps. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to find that capital B. We're going to find the area of the base. Now we just decided that our base is a triangle, so if you don't know, you'll want to go back to your table and see what the formula is for triangles. I'm actually going to use this second one because that is my preference, but remember, either one of those works. So what I'm going to do in this first step is I'm going to replace my formula with base times height divided by 2. And remember, this is only referring to the shape of the base. So I'm going to go ahead and redraw it so we don't have any confusion. And I'm redrawing this right triangle. When I look at that base, you may need to turn your head or something like that. I know the bottom of it, the base of the triangle, is 6 centimeters. And then when I look, I want to find the height of the triangle, which goes from the bottom up to the top. And that is 8 centimeters. So of course, 6 is going to be my B, my base, and 8 is going to be my H, my height. So I'm going to plug into this formula that I have for the area of the base. I end up with 6 times 8 divided by 2. 6 times 8 gives me 48. And then your last step is to divide that by 2 to give you 24. So when I come back to my volume formula, I have figured out that this capital B, the area of the base, is 24. I'm going to put it in parentheses because I still need that H, that height. It is not always going to be the same as the height of your base, though. I need to come back to my picture and I need to see about the edges or the sides that connect my two bases, my two triangles together. That is going to be the height for our volume. And when I look at that, it happens to be 8. It's the same as our area of the base height, but it's not always going to be that way. So I'm going to plug it in. You have 24 times 8. This is what your volume is going to be. When you plug that in, you should get 192, and it is centimeters cubed here. So remember, your first step was to first find the base and then find the area of the base. And then step 2 is then to plug everything into the volume formula. Remember to be careful about that height because it may not always be the same as the height of your base. Alright, so example 5 again, you can see that there are triangles in this. So we are going to call this a triangular prism. So again, I'm going to draw that right triangle out. I am going to draw it right side up. So you're going to have to do a little head tilting if you can't see it right away. Remember again, our formula for these prisms for volume is volume equals area of the base times the height. I already went ahead and drew my step number 1 out, draw the base. So when I look, I first need to find the base of my triangle. And in my picture, that's right here, the bottom of the triangle. I look at the side across from it since there is no measurement, and I see that it is 3. So 3 goes at the bottom. I now need to find the height of my triangle. The hypotenuse is there. It's not really that important, so I'm not going to label it. There's not a number on the height, but the side across from it has 4, so I know the height of my triangle is also 4. So since this is a triangle, my formula for the area, well, let me use a big B actually. Formula for the area of the base is the base times height divided by 2. So in this, 3 is my base, 4 is my height, so I plug it in. 3 times 4 divided by 2. 3 times 4 gives me 12. And then your last step, divide that by 2 to get 6 for your area of the base. Now we have that area of the base for the volume. The last thing we need is that height that connects our bases. So when I look at this height, the line that connects the bases, it's 1. So I can now fill everything into my formula. My area of the base we found to be 6 times the height of our prism is 1. So I find out here that my volume is equal to 6 times 1, which is just 6 yards cubed. So always for these prisms, you need to remember your volume is still the area of the base times the height. Now when I look over here at this prism, I see that my base is a trapezoid. So your first step, area of the base. The formula for that trapezoid, remember you have 2 options. I'm going to go by preference, so I'm using base 1 plus base 2 divided by 2 multiplied by the height. So we did struggle with figuring out what our bases were on a trapezoid. I saw that in the surface area. So when I look at my trapezoid, your base is at the top and the bottom. And I'm going to call the top one my base 1. There's not a measurement there, so you have to look at the side across from it. So I know that my base 1 is 11. Plus, my base 2 is on the bottom, and it does have a measurement, so it's 4 divided by 2 times the height of my trapezoid. So if you look, there is a dashed line on your trapezoid showing you the height, which is 6.1. So we're going to start combining to get one number. 11 plus 4 gives us 15. We're going to divide that by 2. And when we do that, you should end up with 7.5 times 6.1. If you want, of course, to do it by hand, you're welcome to. If you plug it into your calculator, though, you should get 45.75 should be the area of your base. So we're almost done. The next thing we need is to find the height of our prism. So I'm going to plug in 45.75 as the area of the base times our height. So when I look, the length, the side connecting our 2 bases is 10. So I'm going to go ahead and put 10 in there. You're going to multiply 45.75 by 10. And when you do that, you should end up with 457.5 centimeters cubed for your volume. Alright, so example 7 again, you see that we do have a trapezoid, so it is a trapezoidal prism. So we're going to go ahead and write out our formula. Volume equals area of the base times the height. Now example 6, I did the first step for you. I gave you the formula, the area of the base. So remember, you take base 1 and base 2, divided by 2, and multiply by the height. If you want to use the 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height, that works too. It's the same thing. So now over on my trapezoid, I am going to highlight my 2 bases so we know what we're looking at. The one on the top, our base 1 does not have a measurement, so you need to look across from it, and you should see that that is 7 plus our bottom base is 4 divided by 2. And then when we look at our trapezoid, we have that dashed line telling us that our height is 3.7. So your next step, start combining numbers. 7 plus 4 gives you 11 divided by 2 times 3.7. So I'm just writing out all these steps. If you can skip them, that's totally fine too. 11 divided by 2 leaves you with 5.5 times 3.7. And when you plug that in, 5.5 times 3.7, you should end up with 20.35. So before we can plug into our volume formula, we need to look at our 2 bases, and we need to look at the edge or the side that connects the 2 of them. That's going to be our height, and it gives us that being 12. So this is our height. So the area of our base, remember that was 20.35, and our height for the volume is going to be 12. When I plug in 20.35 times 12, I get 244.2. Your measurements are meters. Remember, it's cubed because we are in volume. So the volume for this trapezoidal prism is 244.2 meters cubed. Alright, example 9. We're done with the triangle. So when I look at this, I need to find what my base is. It's usually that odd shape out. So I'm going to go ahead and color this in. When I look at it, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides that are all the same side. So remember, this is a pentagonal prism. If you don't know your prefixes, you're going to be really confused. So again, your formula for volume of a prism is the area of the base times the height. Your first step here is the area of the base. Now, we don't have a formula for just a pentagon, but we do have a formula for a regular polygon. Remember, regular means all of the sides and angles are the same. The tick marks here and the angle markings tell you it is a regular pentagon. So your formula for that, you take the apothem, which goes from the middle of the pentagon and it's perpendicular to the side, times the perimeter of the base divided by 2. So when I look at my base on the bottom, I am given the apothem. It goes to the middle, it creates that perpendicular angle with the edge length. So I know that 6.2 is my apothem, my little a. But I'm not just given the perimeter. I am given the length of one side, and I know that all 5 sides are the same length. So to find my perimeter, I take my side length, which is 9, and I'm going to multiply it by the number of sides, which is 5. And 9 times 5 gives me 45 for my perimeter. So now I can go and find that area of the base. I take my apothem, 6.2, times my perimeter, which is 45, and I'm going to divide it by 2 in the end. So 45 times 6.2 gives me 279. And then, of course, your last step is to divide that by 2, and you end up with 139.5 for the area of your base. Now we have the area of the base. We want to look at our 2 bases. So let me just color them in real quick. And I want to look at one of these sides that is connecting the 2. They're all the same length. So I know that for my volume formula, 12 is my height. So I can plug everything in. The area of the base is 139.5. My height is 12. And your last step, of course, is to plug it in and simplify. So you should get 139.5 times 12 gives you 1,674. Our units of measure are miles cubed because it is volume. So this is the volume of your pentagonal prism. I somehow managed to skip example 8, so we're going to go back and do that just so you can get that practice. Remember, your volume is equal to the area of the base times the height. This is just like example 9 because if you look, it is a pentagon. So first, your area of the base, we take the apothem times the perimeter divided by 2. So when I look at this bottom base, it actually gives me the apothem already, and I know that is 5.5. And in order to find my perimeter, I know that one side length is 8, and I know there are 5 of these sides. So 8 times 5 will give me the perimeter, which gives me 40. I now have all my information to find my area of the base. So I take my apothem, which is 5.5. I multiply by my perimeter of the base, which is 40, and we're going to divide that by 2. So when I do 40 times 5.5, that gives me 220 on the top. We go and divide that by 2, and you find that your area of the base, the area of that pentagon, is 110. Now going back to the drawing again, I look at the side connecting my 2 bases together. That shows me my height for my volume is 9. So I take my area of the base, which is 110, and I multiply it by my height, which is 9. So 110 times 9 gives me 990. This is my volume, and then your units, of course, are meters cubed. So there are 2 more examples. They're still prisms, of course. We need to decide what kind of prisms they are. So when I color in this base, when I look at it, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 equal sides, which means this is a hexagonal prism. So everything is still the same. It's very similar to the pentagon. There's only really one step that's different. So volume is equal to the area of the base times the height. I first am going to find my area of the base. So the apothem times the perimeter divided by 2. Now when I look, I have the apothem already labeled for me as 7.8. So that's my apothem. Now here's where things are a little different. It's just the perimeter. So when I look over here at my drawing, I see that the side lengths are 9. But since this is a hexagon as a base, it's not 5 sides, it is 6. Oh my god. Okay. And then I need my perimeter. So when I look at my perimeter, remember we took the length of each side, which is 9. And this is where it differs. Instead of having 5 sides like a pentagon, it's a hexagon, so it has 6. So 9 times 6 gives us 54. I can go ahead and plug it into my formula for area of the base. So my apothem is 7.8 times my perimeter, which is 54, and then we're still going to divide it by 2. So 7.8 times 54 gives me 421.2. And then your last step to find this area of the base is to divide by 2, and it leaves you with 210.6. So coming over back to my drawing, I look at the lines, they're kind of hard to see, that connect my two bases together, and there's only one of them labeled, so I know this 4 feet is my height. So plugging everything in, the area of the base was 210.6 times the height, which is 4. When I plug that into my calculator, I get 842.4 as my volume, and its units are feet cubed. And your last example for this, your volume is still the area of the base times the height. Again, I gave you another hexagonal prism. So 1, find the area of the base. Apothem times the perimeter of the base divided by 2. Your apothem is labeled right here, so I know 7.8 is my apothem. I need to find my perimeter of the base. I know each side length is 9 feet times there are 6 sides. So again, this is 54. So I can plug into my formula for the area of the base. 7.8 times 54 divided by 2. When I do 7.8 times 54, I end up with 421.2 on the top divided by 2. And I see that again, the area of my base is 210.6. It just worked out to be the same as the last example. It won't always be that way. So I look at the sides connecting my two bases, and I see that 10 is going to be my height. So again, my area of the base is 210.6 times my height, which is 10. When I multiply 210.6 times 10, it's 2,106 feet cubed for your volume. So you do have an assignment that goes through each of these different examples, each of these different prisms, so you know how to do it. And then the last video for this week is going to be finding the volume of cylinders, because remember, that's a specific type of prism. Yesterday's assignment and the one for cylinders are pretty short. This one's a little bit longer because I need one of each example at least, and maybe a couple word problems as well. So if you have any questions, text me on Remind, send me a comment on Google Classroom, send me an email, or come to my tutorials. Remember, they're Monday through Friday at 9 a.m. and 2 p.m.